Hi, I'm Sherry Strong, chef, nutritionist, and sugar cessation expert. Through this Sugar Masterclass video series, we're laying the foundations for you to transform your relationship with food. At Sweet Freedom, it's not about becoming as skinny as possible or enforcing a restrictive diet that you have to maintain for the rest of your life. Our focus is on you having a happy, healthy relationship with food so that you're in control of your cravings and your cravings aren't controlling you. We want you to get to a place where you're no longer using food and sugar as an emotional support and you're not having these crazy sugar-induced binges. We want you to start to feel really good about your relationship with food and not afraid of it, not worried about how you look in your body and feel in your body, judging yourself all the time about what you do and don't eat and how much you eat, where you literally have a peace around your relationship with food. How wonderful would it feel to walk past your favorite treats or have them sitting right in front of you and not be tempted at all? We want you to get to a place where you experience true self-love, where the decisions you make actually heal your body instead of harm your body. So in this video, we're going to start to rekindle a healthy relationship with food by returning to eating real food. And remember what I said in the last video? The more you nourish, the less you crave. There are more nutrients in these 3 recipes than many North Americans are getting in an entire week. And by introducing these 3 recipes into your eating, your way of eating, you are going to develop what I call a nourished foundation. What I mean by a nourished foundation is that these foods will start to heal the damage that's caused by a lifetime of eating processed foods. The other thing they're going to do is the more they nourish you, they're actually going to help you curb your sugar cravings. You're going to crave that less. And most importantly, getting into the kitchen, working with real food, learning how to prepare it, is something that will lay a foundation for a lifetime of a healthy relationship with food. Because one of the things that the most credible and well-respected nutritionists agree on, even though they disagree on a lot of things, is that getting into the kitchen and preparing your own food is essential for that healthy relationship with food and your body. Before we get started, it's important to make sure you're sourcing the best quality ingredients available to you, because the closer what you're eating is to nature, the more nutrient dense it's going to be. Ask yourself this: are you consuming mindfully or mindlessly? Okay? Are you more focused on getting the cheapest, most convenient, quick food, or something that's actually going to nourish your body? So think about it. If you're going out and just trying to score the cheapest deal, something that's quick and easy, convenience takeout food every night, and you're not actually engaged in the process of sourcing and preparing your food, you're actually detached from what it is you're eating. So you could be really eating anything, and you're not really developing a really grounded, strong foundational relationship with it. So running around the supermarket on autopilot, not really conscious and connecting to what we're eating or what we're sourcing, makes it really hard for us to actually feel grateful for what we're eating. And when you're not consciously grateful for what it is you're eating, you're much more likely to mindlessly consume on default. The way you shop and source for food has a significant impact on your Sweet Freedom journey. At Sweet Freedom, we want you to become an empowered consumer, because when you're empowered, you're much more likely to make healthy decisions about your life and what you eat. We like to say strong choices for a strong life, as opposed to when you're feeling powerless, you're much more likely to succumb to all the pressures of sugar around us as a society. So think of it this way. Have you ever been in a place where you're just feeling really good and happy and strong and powerful, and you've managed to just walk past the bakery? Or you actually push your plate away before you're full. And then other times where you're triggered and feeling powerless and you can't get to the bakery fast enough. To make sure we're eating the best quality, healthiest ingredients, we're going to follow a principle called slow eating. Now, SLOW is an acronym that stands for seasonal, local, organic, and whole. When food is in season and sourced locally, it's not only going to taste a lot better, but it's going to be more nutrient dense. Now, if you've ever had a piece of fruit that's been warmed by the sun, ripened by the sun, and plucked from the tree, and you eat it, or have it just freshly, delivered from the farmer's market, it tastes so much different and so much better than anything you'll find at a supermarket. The longer your produce is away from the source of where it's being picked or cut, the more nutrient loss is going to happen. So the longer it's shipped, overseas or transported in a truck or kept in storage, the more nutrient loss of vitamins, minerals, and other precious nutrients like phytochemicals is going to start to diminish. So the moment a piece of produce is picked, its enzymes start decomposing and feeding on itself. So when you're in the supermarket next time, have a look around and see where your fruit and vegetables are actually coming from, and start to understand that if it's come from far away, the chances are it's going to be less fresh and it's going to actually have less nutrients. So when I'm talking about organic, I'm basically just talking about food without chemicals in them. We don't need those chemicals. And the fact is that many products in the supermarket are not only grown with chemicals, processed with chemicals, and had nutrients processed out, but the packaging and the way they're processed actually makes them more toxic and addictive to the body. Whole living foods have sustained life on this planet for millions of years. And by returning to those whole living foods, we're now eating foods that our bodies have evolved to easily digest. Our bodies have not evolved to digest highly processed foods, and especially sugars. So where do you get these seasonal, local, organic, and whole foods? Well, the best place, if you haven't already guessed it, is the farmer's market. When it comes to slow eating, it ticks all the boxes. Buying your food locally means you not only know who's grown your food, but where it's come from. And you're not having to worry about food that's being shipped around the world filled with nasty chemicals and pumped full of preservatives to keep it so it lasts on the supermarket shelf for a long time. One of the things about buying locally is it's probably your best chance to ensure that you're buying the freshest, most nutrient dense, and tastiest food around. And if you don't believe me, try this little experiment. Go to your farmer's market and buy something that's organic and in season and that you want to eat. And then go to your supermarket and get the same equivalent and do a taste test. Because not only are you going to find that in most cases, the supermarket food is not actually going to even taste as good, it's not going to feel as good as something that's grown seasonally, locally, organic, and whole. So if you're not able to get to a farmer's market, try and stick as closely as you can to the slow principle, because it will be a great guiding force for you. So when you're looking at your supermarket, try to find the things that are organic, seasonal, local, and whole. And then working within that principle, even within a supermarket, you're going to do way better than not being conscious about what it is and how you're sourcing your food. What you'll find with Sweet Freedom is we're all about getting you away from having to figure out complicated food labels or look at long lists to find out what it is you're meant to be eating. We're really about preparing food from scratch, so as simply as you possibly can. So when you're in the supermarket, you're going to look for things that are whole foods. And if you are buying something that isn't whole foods, you want things that you actually recognize and know exactly what they are. You see, the whole reading labels and counting, that whole counting process is actually counterintuitive to how human beings are actually meant to be eating. And when we actually start to just get back to as close as we possibly can to the source of how we're meant to be eating, there's a beautiful freedom that comes from not having to worry about labels, because you're not buying the foods with complicated processed foods in them. There's no worry about buying things that have nasties in them, because you know the source of where they're coming from, who you're buying from, and now you're also going to learn how to prepare it. So you're not mindlessly consuming some kind of conveyor belt pre-prescribed diet, meal that more often than not has a lot of things in it that are not good for you or your body. So what you're going to find is this way of shopping really is in stark contrast to just going through a boring supermarket on autopilot. You're now turning it into something that is mindful, you're conscious about it, and you start to develop this beautiful relationship with the food you're buying and how that's going to impact your body. Now, if you're one of those people who isn't inspired by vegetables or doesn't even like the taste of them, chances are you've been eating the supermarket versions that have been, in storage for a long time, traveled a long way, or weren't grown with integrity in the first place. When you have the lovely farmer's market vegetables and you learn how to prepare them very simply so the flavors actually speak for themselves, it will actually change your relationship to vegetables. To give you a powerful illustration of how this works, I do corporate keynote speaking, and I have a cooking keynote. And as part of my cooking keynote, I will ask the audience who feels they're the worst cook in the audience. And we find the worst cook in the audience and bring them up on stage to do a cooking competition with me, so MasterChef style. Now, before you think I'm being really mean, given my experience as a chef, what happens is that we prepare the exact same recipe, only they get top shelf farmers market ingredients, and I get ordinary everyday supermarket ingredients. We prepare the exact same recipe, it's super simple, and then we invite audience members to come up and do a taste test to declare the winner. Now, I've been doing this for over 10 years, and every single time, the worst cook, the self-proclaimed worst cook in the audience, is the winner. And what this illustrates is that you don't have to be a great chef to prepare meals that can actually win over someone who is a well-established chef. You just simply need to buy food that's seasonal, local, organic, and whole, that's treated well, and just prepare it simply to actually have beautiful food. Don't believe me? Try one of these simple recipes I'm going to prepare right now. So grab your aprons, if you've got it, or chef's hat if you like, and let's get cooking. The first recipe we're going to do today is a smoothie, and this is a living food smoothie. So there's wide speculation on what makes a good smoothie. I'm going to tell you why I'm making the smoothie this way. It's living ingredients, they're whole food, they're definitely seasonal, they're definitely local and organic. And so what I'm working with that's available to me in season is spinach. Okay, now one of the big things with smoothies that I want you to know about is that we want to keep these plant and living foods because they're going to be the most powerful. A lot of protein powders not only are processed and grown in a way that actually can create problems in the body. Did you know that some of the protein powders can actually contribute to things like tooth decay and pancreatic cancer? Absolutely connected to it. So what we're doing is we're having a smoothie that is all healing, no harming. And it will actually have a good amount of protein in it, which people are concerned about, but we don't need to be if we're eating this way. Now, when you're concerned about your protein and you're thinking, where is this smoothie getting its protein from? This green stuff is where the largest mammals on the planet get their protein from. They don't eat dead animals or anything like that to get their protein. They get it from living foods, and greens are sufficient for actually providing our protein needs. So I'm starting off with a nice big handful of the spinach, and I have washed that. And then I'm going to add an apple in season. So with the smoothies, I only use fruits that are in season, and I use the subacid fruits, the fruits that aren't high in sugar. So I don't use bananas and pineapple, the tropical flavors. I know they taste delicious, but if you start to do some research about two things, one, how they're grown and treated and shipped over, and the things that they're actually treated with, it's not a good thing. And if you live particularly in North America and places like that, you don't want tropical fruits going into the winter. It actually messes with your system. So I'm using an apple. I'm actually using the core. I'm taking off the little end fuzzy bit and the stem, but I actually include the core because there are nutrients in the core that are actually good for us, including those apple seeds. So what I do though is I cut it into 8. So the first half I'm cutting into 4, so 4 sections, and that means that that core will break up much more easily in the blender. And you want a high-powered blender. Now, you can make this in an ordinary blender, but a friend of mine who I actually taught to make smoothies, she made hers in an ordinary blender, and she said, it kind of had the texture of baby food with hairs in it. So if that's the case for you, and you're really sensitive about fibers, if you chop the things up more, they're actually going to blend more smoothly. But this is a great investment, getting a high-powered blender, and the prices of them are coming down, every day. It's one of the things that once you invest in it, you will never, ever regret not getting that purchase. The next thing I'm going to use is some cucumber. I've got a continental cucumber. I'm using about a third of a continental cucumber. And again, I like to give my vegetables and fruits just a little bit of a chop to blend it, to make it blending it, even though it's a high-powered blender, I want to make sure that it doesn't spend too much time blending, because then that will actually take away some of the nutrients and it'll make it warm, and I want it nice and cold. And then another thing, for if you want something that's super alkalizing, which is an antidote to our processed foods, and the more alkaline your body is, the less you actually want sugar and addictive foods. That was an amazing thing for me. And what I find is the more alkaline I am, things like coffee and sugar just have very little appeal to me. Although I can manage to get a cup of coffee down, even when I'm alkaline. So I'm just going to use half of the lemon, and I'm actually going to use the peels because the peels are organic, because the lemon is organic, the peel is organic, so I don't have to worry about chemicals on the outside of it. And there are lovely oils within the lemon that really help with that alkalizing process and cleansing process. And then I'm going to finish off with some hemp seeds. Now I've probably got about a tablespoon of hemp seeds. These are locally grown here in Canada, and they have a great protein profile. There's fiber in them, and there's also fats. Now the great thing about having a smoothie with a little bit of fat is that in some of our vegetables there are fat-soluble vitamins. And what's going to happen is, as you have a fat that accompanies the fat-soluble vitamins, you're much more easily to ingest and appropriate it throughout your body. So that's how simple a smoothie can be. And this is one of the things that you can do in advance. So if you know you have got very little time to get ready for work in the morning, you can have all of this done and sitting in the fridge with the water in it. Now I use spring water. That's really important to me because I don't want the chemicals and the chlorine, things like that from my tap water. I find it tastes better, makes my body feel better. So that's an investment for me. What most people will spend on 2 cups of coffee in a week, I get 5 gallons of spring water that's locally sourced delivered to my door in BPA-free bottles. So I used to source it myself, but they closed down the springs, the 2 places that I went to here in British Columbia, so I was really upset. Now I have to buy my water, and I'm more actually attached to the fact that I can't actually get it myself than having to pay for it. And being a frugal cook, that's saying something. So it's just simply a matter of filling your water level up to your desired level of what you're going to actually create a smoothie. Now, a lot of people like thickies. I like smoothies. I like to be able to drink it. I don't want to eat it with a spoon. So that will just determine the amount of water. It's always better to start off with less water. You can blend it, and then if you need more water, you can add it back in. So that's how difficult it is to make a smoothie. And like I said, there's more nourishment in this smoothie than most people are actually getting in a day, and in some cases in a week, because they're eating mostly processed food and they're eating so much sugar it's actually stripping nutrients from them. And this is something that you can easily do to start your day. This is actually enough for 4 people to have a glass and still feel nicely nourished from. But if you have a bigger appetite in the morning, you can make this and have it throughout the morning. Just pour it into your jug, take it with you, and sip it throughout the day. And it really is a good idea to just sip it, throughout, rather than chugging it all down. You're going to get a better nutrient absorption in your body if you sip your smoothies instead of chug them. So we're going to go off to the blender now. So here you go. Within just a few minutes, you have something that is super nutritious. It actually is really lovely and tasty, and this will give you a perfect nourished foundation to start your day with. Soups are a wonderful way to get nourishment into your body, and they're kind of like the smoothies for winter or in the warmer months, or just main course kind of smoothies. That's how I like to think of them, although I do like a bit of chunk in my soup. So what we're making today is a cauliflower and potato soup, cauliflower leek and potato, and I've got a few other little things to kind of put into it, but this is one of those soups that is just so simple to make, and that you don't have to go through complex, steps and layers to actually make a soup taste good. And every single thing in here is actually healing and good for you. And what we're doing is we're doing a simmer method as opposed to sauteing it ahead of time. So I've already got some spring water in my pot, and I'm going to add my ingredients into the pot. Now, what I'm going to do is put them in and then let them cook long and slow over a slow period of time. And that will bring out the flavors, and it will give a really nice texture to the soup. And there's a smoothness that comes to cooking something over a long, slow period of time. Now, if you're in a hurry and you want to make this fast, you can do it in the traditional method of making a soup, where you just basically put some oil in the bottom of the pan and saute some of the ingredients like the leek and the garlic, and then add your other ingredients, add the water on top or stock if you prefer, and then let it cook in a shorter period of time. But the way I'm doing it now is really more of a healing soup. So you're not cooking fats at a high heat that are not going to tolerate that, and all your vegetables are going to retain the nutrients better for the process that we're doing. So to simply start, what I'm going to do is I've got some Siglinde potatoes. Now, I realize that they're not available everywhere in the world, and this is a farmer's market, heirloom variety of potato. And the reason I'm using it is not only because it's absolutely delicious, but it has a yellowy flesh. And what we're finding is with the heirloom varieties of plant foods, they have more nutrients in them. The white kind of potatoes that have been grown for the mass diet will spike your blood sugar, whereas these potatoes, particularly if we're cooking them long and slow, won't do that. And so I just cut them into chunks. Because I'm going to do a combination of cooking this and then blending some of it, nothing has to look pretty in the way that I'm cutting it up. So you don't have to be a chef to cut it up. And it's just a matter of, I'm cutting these into 4. I don't want them too big because I don't want it to take too long to cook, even though I'm doing a long, slow process. And I don't want them to be too small. So it's the mama bear, papa bear, baby bear principle. Just right is how I want to actually cut it up. So once my potatoes are done, I'm going to move on to my cauliflower. And the cauliflower is really simple in that you just break it off the florets from the actual head of the cauliflower and just start to pop them in. And if you have larger florets like this, I just tend to break them off and pop them into my pot. There we go. So you have nice bits that are usually, you try and get them, the general principle with cooking is to have things in uniform kind of sizes, so you don't have like huge bits of cauliflower and then tiny bits. You want them to kind of be around the same size. But remember, you will notice, or not remember, but notice, I'm not measuring anything here. Now, this can be a little disturbing for precision cooks. Precision cooks are the people who need a recipe and follow a recipe, and if it goes outside of the recipe, they don't have an ingredient, they can't make the recipe. I'm more of an intuitive cook, and what I have found over the years is that if precision cooks can be persuaded to add a little bit more intuition into their cooking and starting to trust their judgment around their food, it ends up tasting better. And that's because this cauliflower, the cauliflower that I have here locally, might have a different taste and flavor than the cauliflower that's grown near you. And so by being able to kind of be a bit more fluid and use your judgment and your intuition around your cooking, you're going to have, again, it's more of a relationship with the food. Now, if you're a precision cook, we can definitely provide outlines and recipes for that. And really, if you look online, you're going to find so many recipes. It's not a problem to actually find that. But one of the sweet freedom processes is just to have a little bit more freedom in how you're actually choosing to cook. And so by being more intuitive and less having to worry about measurements, you can actually have a little bit more fun with your food and cooking. So the next thing that I'm going to put in are leeks. Now these are baby leeks because from the farmers markets, that's what looked the best. What you want from a leek is that it's nice and green. You've got the white part here that moves into the green, and then you've got this long bit. Now a lot of people don't use this long bit of the green of the leek, and I have to tell you, it's one of the most delicious parts of the leek, so please make sure you use it. Now to use a leek, what you're going to want to do is to cut it down the middle. So you see the center here, I'm cutting it right down the middle because most leeks are very dirty. They're a very dirty vegetable, right? And then you'll see, if you look in here, there's all kinds of dirt in there. What you're going to want to do is take that over to the sink and wash it up so that when you go like this and you open up your leeks, all the way through, there's no dirt in there, because dirt is like the natural enemy to an enjoyable meal. If you've ever bitten into something that's got that gritty kind of flavor, not very nice. It's not going to harm you if you've got it from good soil, but it's not a pleasant experience. So then once they're cut through and they're washed, it's just a matter of chopping them. And again, this doesn't have to be fine because it's a long, slow cooking soup. And what you'll find too is with the longer, slower temperature with this soup, it gets more of a silky texture to it, particularly with the cauliflower, the leek, and the potato. And it's one of those things that as you start to become more connected to your food, you're going to start to notice and taste the flavor differences that actually come from having things cooked texturally different and over different cooking periods of time. So I've got my leek in there. Now for something a little bit more green, I want to add more green into it. I've got some zucchinis, and I'm going to grate them. I'm going to make zoodles from them. So you're going to get this noodle-like texture with the zucchini. Now you can do, if you're wanting to have a little bit more kind of playtime with your food, you can put the zucchini in, I'd say probably just about 5 minutes before it's finished cooking. And then you're going to have a different flavor. You're obviously going to have less of the nutrient loss from the cooking. But what happens is when we cook food, we also can make it more digestible for the gut. And as a species, we've adapted to having cooked foods. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add this amount, 1 zucchini in now. And you can see it's not a terribly big zucchini. And then I'm going to add in one later just before it's finished cooking, about 5 minutes before. So I have a mix of those two. And then to that, I'm going to add some freshly ground pepper, freshly ground, into my soup. I like a bit of heat in it. I'm going to put some Maldon sea salt, which Andy brought me back from England, very famous over there. And that's a naturally white sea salt. It hasn't been cleaned. And then I'm going to put in a bit of chili because we on set, we like a bit of heat in our food. And if you need any advice on what kind of salts to pick, we have a page on our website with recommended products if that's helpful to you. So the last two things I'm going to add is some garlic. And because I'm not sauteing the garlic off ahead of time, and I am going to cook it long and slow, I want a bit of garlic flavor. So I've just done a little tap there. And because it's going to be cooked over a long, slow time, I don't have to mince it. If I was doing the saute method and sauteing it off first, I would actually mince it up. But this I'm just going to crush and smash. And when you give it a little crush, the skin comes off easily. There's so many implements now that you can actually do this, but I find that that's not that hard. Okay, but the first thing you need to do is give it a crack in that skin. And with garlic, it's really important that you get fresh garlic. So you don't want any little sprouty things coming out because it's going to leave not a good flavor in your soup. Small and firm is what you're looking for. There we go. You hear that smash? Smash. And it's going in because it's nice young garlic. I don't even have to take off the end bit. So the last thing I'm adding in is a bit of cold pressed coconut oil. Okay, coconut oil can actually stand the heats that I'm actually cooking with, and it's plant-based and it's got a great quality. And if you want any more advice about oils, the ones we recommend, we have a recommended products page on our website, so you can go there too. So now, once I have all my ingredients in here, I've got my spring water in there. I'm just going to add a little bit more. I don't need it to completely cover because it'll start to cook down. And I'm just going to put that on a medium to low heat. I'll bring it up to the boil so it actually comes up to a simmer. And then once it comes up to the simmer, I'm going to turn it down and let it cook for over 30 minutes, around 30 minutes. And that will be enough to make it all tender and cook, and all those flavors will meld together, and it's going to taste absolutely delicious. So when your soup is done, you'll know because the cauliflower and the potatoes are lovely and tender. And you can have it as a clear soup with chunky vegetables, or you can blend the entire soup in a blender, or you can do what I've done, which I've taken half the soup and blended it and added it to my chunky vegetables. That way I have this beautiful kind of creamy soup with lovely textured chunks of cauliflower and potato that I can chew into. And what you'll do is you'll find if you use great quality ingredients and you've taken care, this soup will taste absolutely fabulous. Something that is a staple to Sweet Freedom Living are salads. And salads are something that we've come to associate with dieting rather than truly being nourished. And the reason is that most of the salads out there on the market aren't really nourishing. They're made with mass-produced ingredients that aren't grown in good soils. They've got dressings on them that are full of nasty ingredients and sugars and salts and a lot of chemicals. And so a lot of those dressings aren't healthy. And so we've got this kind of mixed messaging around salads, something I'm doing when I'm being good. And I'd like to reframe it as a salad can be an incredible act of self-love and love for the planet, because I believe that what's good for the body is good for the planet, and what's good for the planet is good for the body. So when we start to prepare foods that have been grown with respect to our earth, they give back to us. And when we eat those foods, we get sick less often, so we have less of a negative impact on the planet and a much more positive impact on our personal life. So I know you're thinking, Sherry, are salads really linked to world peace? I truly believe it, okay? So with salads, for me, it starts always with great quality ingredients, from things like getting the lettuces from the farmer's market or even looking in the supermarket for the things that are grown locally. So it doesn't always have to be right from your area. I'll actually choose organically grown over conventionally locally grown in the supermarket, and at the farmer's market, I'm always seeking out the stalls that are organic because I don't want chemicals in my food. So you'll see that I've got some romaine lettuce, maybe you won't see, and what I've done ahead of time is I've washed that thoroughly because I don't like dirt in my salads. Might have some minerals in it, but it's not really my way of getting them. And then I just washed them and popped them in a salad spinner, spun them, and then chopped them up. Super simple. Now, simple, you might be thinking, Sherry, these recipes are just too easy or too simple. And I want to remind you that simplicity is the pathway to mastery. And sometimes the most simple things I have learned having had meals prepared for me by some of the world's top chefs is when they go home and they cook in their own kitchens, the food is incredibly simple and it usually starts with amazing produce. So I'm spending a lot of time talking about the produce, and that's kind of the basis of why this dish is so important, is when you start to source great quality ingredients, you have to do very little with it. So I'm going to add some zoodles, zucchini noodles, to my salad, just popping it on the zoodle maker and giving those a little taste. And I like the way the dressing that I'm going to make, which is again super simple, makes the little zoodles kind of slippery and silky. Then I'm going to add some cucumber. I've got these tiny little finger cucumbers. They're often called, in Australia we call them Lebanese cucumbers. And again, these are from the farmer's market. And I'm just taking off the end bits, so you don't have to if you like, leaving the skin on. You'll see that with most of the things that I cook and use in my food, like carrots and potatoes, I don't actually peel them because of the nutrients that are in the peel. It does two things. It gives me more nutrients, more volume for my food, and it saves me time. That was actually three things. So then I'm just going to cut these, I did lengthwise in half, and so essentially I'm getting little half moon shapes. I love that how that actually tastes when you cut it this way. Now you're going to say, Sherry, really? How you cut it actually makes a difference? And can I tell you, when I was first a chef, I went and did a master class with Marika Brugman in Haukodale in Australia. And I remember her during one of the classes saying how you cut the tomatoes actually makes a difference to their flavor. And I actually thought she was being ridiculous. I remember saying, oh my God, they had diced tomato in the salad. And like, that's just terrible to actually have diced tomato in the salad. It was horrible. They obviously didn't know what they were doing. And I used to, mimic her and kind of make fun of it. But I did learn that how you actually cut something not just makes a difference to its texture and visually how it represents, but it can actually impact flavor. So when we talk about simplicity, when we go micro into food, we realize that how we cut things, how we source them, our intention with which we prepare it actually makes a difference. And it's why I often say I'd much rather have a greasy bowl of noodles, with people who are kind, positive, loving, and upbuilding, than have the most gourmet, nutritiously prepared meal with people who are angry, depressed, and negative. But if you pair having a meal with people who are kind and loving, and you pair that with food that is prepared with great intention, you actually have the seeds of creating something transformational in the way you're eating. So you don't have to be a great chef. You don't have to create complex flavors to make your food delicious. You just need to source well. And speaking of sourcing well, these are heirloom tomatoes from the farmer's market. I've bought them at a kind of a perfect kind of ripeness where if I throw this against the window, it's not going to break the window, and it's not going to just completely dissolve and go splat. So it's finding that middle ground. The splat phase is really good for making sauce, but maybe not so much for the salad. And another thing that I do with tomatoes when they're in season, I will make a dressing just simply with the tomatoes, lemon juice, salt, and olive oil. And it does actually make a difference to the flavor than the dressing that I'm going to make, which is just one ingredient different to that. So I've got some diced tomato in there, and because they're at that perfect ripeness, the juices will actually meld with the other flavors of the salad, and you're going to find that it's absolutely delicious. And I'm going to use two types of heirloom tomatoes here, the red and the orange ones. These ones are, I think, heart tomatoes or purple heart tomatoes. I have some black Russians in there, and I can't remember the name of the orange ones from the farmer's market. But sorry, Marika, I'm making diced tomatoes in the salad. So I still think it's going to taste absolutely delicious. But when we start to learn how our ingredients are made and the integrity with which they're made impacts our flavor, it is completely liberating to know that I just have to go about and buy great ingredients, and then it lessens my time in the kitchen. So speaking of great ingredients, on my salad, I'm going to put, again, a bit of the salt. So I like a bit of salt, brings out the flavor of foods. You don't need to do too much. This is a natural Malden sea salt, as I used in my soup recipe. And I'm going to use some sunflower seeds for a little bit of crunch. There we go. So the salt is the first part of my dressing. Some pumpkin seeds. Nice, another little flavor of crunch. These are raw, and I actually store them in the fridge. And then just for another source of fiber, fats, deliciousness, are some more of those hemp seeds that I used in the smoothie. Now, the two things that I'm dressing my salad with are very, very simple. But simple, again, don't be deceived by quality. I've got a beautiful lemon, half a lemon, that's all I need. And I've got a beautiful quality, extra virgin, first cold pressed organic olive oil. When you're using your oils, you want to make sure that they're fresh. Vintage oils are not a good thing for your salad. So fresh oils, and you want to really invest in your oils. It's better to buy small quantities of a really good oil than getting those 4 liters of a cheap oil. And anytime an oil comes in a 4-liter tin, unless it's food service from a high-end provider, it's probably not a good oil for you. So to dress it, it's just simply a matter of squeezing the lemon. So now I'm squeezing the lemon over the tomato and that salt, which will start to dissolve the salt, and those flavors are now starting to mix. And just, okay. So I've just got a little lemon squeezing dowel, and I'm getting every last little bit of lemon out of there. There we go. And the last thing I do is drizzle with my organic, first cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. And what you'll find, I love that noise, is that it's super thick and viscous. That's the sign of a really good oil. And what happens is that it finishes absolutely clean on your palate. Most of the oils on your supermarket shelf are actually quite thin because of the processing, but they leave a greasy taste on your palate. It's really interesting. Most of the processed oils have been processed with over 14 different processes using heat, heptane, hexane, which is petrol, water and phosphoric acid, bleach, caustic soda. There's all kinds of nasty things that are used in the oil to actually take out all of the delicious nutrients in it so it lasts a long time on a supermarket shelf. And I would bet that 99% of the dressings that are made for the supermarket shelf have low quality oils in them because they're too expensive. So I don't have to use a lot, and I'm very frugal with my actual use of it, but I really encourage you to invest more in your oils, and I see it as an investment because they're not only going to give you some beautiful nutrients in it, there's no downside to them, and it's going to add a fantastic flavor to your salads. So from there, it's just a matter of giving it a toss and dressing it. It really is that simple to make a great salad, and I promise you that when you start to make salads this way, not only will you want to eat more of them, but you're going to want to eat them more often, and you're not going to feel like this is a punishment or that you're missing out or you're dieting or you're doing something that's just good for you without it actually feeling great. Well, I hope you try those recipes, and I hope you enjoy them even half as much as we did gobbling them up on set. I want you to know that although you see me in my happy place, in my element in the kitchen, that I also know if it's not yours, or if you would like it to be, but your life is just too busy, or even if it doesn't interest you at all. I really get that, and I feel for you. And so this approach with Sweet Freedom is not about tomorrow you're going to stop eating all sugar and all of a sudden you're going to create all these super, food recipes. That's not what we're talking about. What we're wanting you to do is to start to bring these into your life. So have a smoothie, even if it's, once a week, and then you work up to twice a week, and then 3 times a week. Bring a salad into your, into your week again. It can be for lunch, it can be with dinner, and make a big pot of soup and have it throughout the week. These are ways where you're not having to spend your life in the kitchen, but you are bringing life into your body by being in the kitchen. Okay, so what you're going to start to notice is that as you start to do this and you get used to being in the kitchen, it gets easier. Like anything, as you learn it and you get more comfortable with it and you associate the fact that you're cooking with the fact that you're actually getting well and you're losing your cravings for sugar and it's losing its grip on you, it's going to become easier. As you start to feel all those life-giving nutrients fusing into your body, so starting to repair the damage that has been done from sugar, from years of processed food, starting to curb your cravings, starting to give you that a life-affirming feeling that will make you want to get back into the kitchen. But you need to be patient with yourself and just try it one recipe at a time and be playful with it. Cauliflower's not your thing? Try something else. Smoothies aren't your thing? Try juicing if you like. Or just try some different things into your smoothies that you already like that you know are going to help you develop a palate for smoothies. Because what you're going to find as you start to eat this way, you're upgrading your palate. It's no longer going to be satisfied with foods that are dead and are making you sick and toxic. But it is a process, and depending on how addicted you are and how many decades you've been addicted to that food, it can take time. So we just want you to be patient with yourself and try and take some expectation away from yourself that you have to be really good at this at the beginning, and just gently move into the kitchen, hopefully, and with a positive attitude. Now, you've seen me in my element, in my happy place in the kitchen, but I want you to know that I understand if this is not your happy place, or you're just too busy, perceive yourself to be too busy to get in here. And I'm not expecting you to all of a sudden ditch the sugar overnight and be making 3 meals a day every single day, like I do. What I am hoping for you is to get into the kitchen and just try this one recipe at a time. Just try the smoothie, and when you've mastered the smoothie, have that once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week, and then it just becomes your normal. And then once you've mastered that, try the salad once a week, twice a week, until it becomes your normal. And the same with the soup. You don't have to learn 57 different recipes to do this. You just have to learn 3 recipes that you alter within the seasons, and then it doesn't get boring. Just add a few ingredients here, a herb there, a different salt, a different pepper, a bit of chili. Little things can actually make a difference. And so if you just take the pressure off yourself and move into the kitchen with a kind heart towards yourself, hopeful that as you start to do this more, you're going to gain confidence in the kitchen, and that confidence is going to turn into something really empowering in the kitchen. And as all the nutrients from the living food start to infuse into your body, you're going to reduce your sugar cravings. You're going to actually start to feel like this food more. And you're going to feel better, and you're going to have more energy to actually be in the kitchen. And I just want to stress this one last time, is that getting into the kitchen is absolutely essential to you developing an empowered and healthy relationship with food. And the more you actually do this with an open heart and an open mind, it's actually going to get easier, and you're going to start to find that it can actually be at times your happy place. So now hopefully you're getting an understanding of the importance of a nourished foundation. And what this is going to do, it's going to start to get you moving in the right direction away from Sugar City and towards your sweet freedom. So let me tell you what's happened to clients I've worked with in the past. They start to implement these healthy recipes. They switch their sugars, the replace principle, and they start to have a certain amount of success. But then I'll speak to them and find out that they had a bad day and were triggered and ended up eating a whole tub of ice cream, or worse, completely fallen off the wagon. Now this is common, and it's because they haven't dealt with the emotional side of their eating habits. This is why in the next video in this Sugar Masterclass series, I'm going to share with you the strategies that help you deal with the emotional side of eating. You can have all the healthiest recipes in the world at your fingertips. You can even have the best of intentions and be highly motivated. But unless you start to deal with the underlying issues that causes you to run to sugar in the first place, it's really only a matter of time before you end up in Sugar City. And make sure you hang around for video 4, where I'm going to be sharing my #1 tip that will help you stay sugar-free long term. No more yo-yo dieting, no more judging yourself, and no more being exhausted trying every single diet out there. This is about real, tangible success. I believe that you can do this, and I'm going to be there with you every step of the way. Let me know how you go in the comments below. I'd love to know how you got on going to the farmer's market, preparing, sharing, and eating these recipes. And if you're extra inspired and you've prepared the recipes or gone to the farmer's market, take a picture, tag us on Instagram, and hashtag Sweet Freedom Life. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.